welcome to Accounting 335. This is the first of a series of videos about the System Understanding Aid. And this is an introductory video that'll just help you get a picture of what this project is for, why we're doing it in this class, and then what you can expect to learn, and also what materials that you'll need to get moving on it. So the main objective in the entire class, in this 335 class, is to get you to the point where you can figure out how to provide information that supports a decision-making need in an organization and helps that organization accomplish its mission. So what I want you to be able to do is, when there's an information need, I want you to be able to know what kind of information should be available in the accounting system and be able to dig through the database and find that information and then present it in a way that will support decision-making for yourself or for other managers in the organization. So this first project, the System Understanding Aid, helps accomplish part of that purpose. So what you do in this project, it's a packet that includes all the documents that you need to run a small business for the last week in December of 2009. And the business is called Warren Sports. It's a sports distributor, so they buy sporting equipment and they sell it to universities. And what you do is you pretend that you're the bookkeeper for that organization, and you record all the transactions that occur during that period. You put them in the accounting records and you produce the financial statements. So the author's intended purpose in creating this packet is to help you understand accounting better and the accounting processes. But that's not really our intended purpose here. We have some other objectives that we're trying to accomplish. So first, this project should help you understand the basic business transaction cycles and the business processes that are associated with each cycle. So for example, there's the sales cycle, and the major processes in the sales cycle are receiving a customer order and executing the sale, shipping the goods to the customer, and then receiving and processing the payment from the customer. So you'll work through all kinds of business processes like that through this project, and you'll think about what's happening as you're doing them. The second thing is when you execute one of those transactions, so it's a sale, for example, you fill out the document for a sale, and you can see all the data that would be captured at the time that a company executes a transaction like that. Some of that ends up in the financial statement, some of it does not. But you gather all that information, it would go in a corporate database, and so you'll see how that information would be captured and when and why and through what business process that data is generated. So you'll get a much better understanding of what information should be in an accounting system database and why it's there and when it arose in the business process. And then the final learning objective is that you'll understand something about how processes are controlled so that the process is executed accurately and then the data is captured accurately and completely. So there are a lot of control procedures that a company will go through just to make sure that a customer is valid, for example, that they have credit, that you've got the inventory they need. There are a lot of processes that you do before you even execute that sales transaction to make sure things are under control. So there are a lot of things that you can learn while you're doing this project, and it's a lot to think about and to absorb at the same time that you're doing all this work. What can happen, and does happen for students who aren't careful, is that you start focusing on the mechanics and the details, and you just get bogged down in these little nitty-gritty bookkeeping tasks, and all you learn about is bookkeeping, and you don't really think about the big picture. So it's really important as you work through to stop at each transaction and step back and think, why am I doing this? Who would be doing this in the company? Why are these controls here? Why are these processes in place? What kind of data am I generating here, and why are we storing all this information? What could it be used for? If you can just take a brief moment and step back every time you do a transaction and think about those things, you can really learn a lot from this project. Otherwise, it's a big project, and it takes you probably 15 to 20 hours, sometimes even more. If you're whiz at accounting already, it might be a lot shorter than that, but for most of you who haven't really gotten much in terms of basic debits and credits, or if you're an IS major or something, it can take you significantly longer than that. So you're going to spend a lot of time on this project, and you want to make it as valuable as you can, and that requires thinking about what's going on while you're doing this sort of tedious, at times, accounting transaction work. So to begin the project, there's a few things that you'll need. In the project packet comes this booklet that's called, I don't know if you can see this, let's see, the instructions, flowcharts, and ledgers. That's got all the basic instructions that you need to do the project. You don't really need my instructions. All you need is this. And so what you need to do in this booklet, whether or not you use my instructions, is you need to read the first maybe 10 to 11 pages, right? And it discusses the company and their accounting policies, and it gives a lot of little pieces of information that you'll need later on, and you'll be confused if you haven't looked through that. The second thing that you need is my set of instructions. It's just posted on my website. It's called System Understanding Aid. It tells you some things about what I require. There are certain things that I don't require you to do. For example, I'd ask you to do a bank reconciliation, and I'd ask you to do a cash flow statement. Now, those are really time consuming, and especially with a cash flow statement, you can learn a lot by doing it, but I'm not requiring it for this project. So it's useful for you to look through and see what's going to be required for you to do and what's not. Also in my instructions, there are some just general helpful hints, and then there's some hints about specific transactions, because there's some transactions that are kind of complicated as you're going through, and they really slow students down in some regards. So if you can look, when you get stuck on a transaction, look and see if it's in here. There might be a hint that would be helpful. I also encourage you to, when you get stuck, just skip that transaction and move on. The transactions don't need to be in any certain order. And it would be nice if you can go to the course website, in Course Studio, and post a question if you're stuck, and someone can respond, someone who's already worked through that transaction, and so you can move along more easily that way. Finally, there's a whole page in the back of that handout that are check figures. It's just a listing of a lot of numbers that you can use so you can see if you're on the right track. I mean, the goal here is not to learn the accounting. I don't care if you remember how to record a sale accurately for this class. I care about understanding the sales process, and so I give you all the information that you need to get those transactions correct. If you make a mistake, you can just go back and fix it, no problem. So there's no reason that if you take the time and you work with the check figures and you work with each other, that you can't get, this fully accurate set of financial statements by the end of this project. In addition to these check figures, I'll bring a solution manual to class, and in my office hours it'll be available, and perhaps some other time, so that you can just check and make sure you've gotten everything correct. Okay, finally, there's a document in your packet that looks like this. It's a big, huge green ledger. It's called a worksheet. You do not need to fill that out manually, but you do need to fill it out, and there's a template for it in Excel, which is posted on my course page. So when you get to the very end of this project and you're asked to do a worksheet, don't fill out the manual. Go to the Excel spreadsheet, and it'll save you a lot of time, and it will be accurate. Okay. Now, as you get started, you may not need to watch any more videos. If you don't get stuck on the project, you're just fine on your own. One thing to really pay attention to those, there are two different transaction lists in your packet. One's green and one's blue. You want to keep the blue one and just toss that green one. We're not using that, the blue one. The numbers are a little bit different, so if you use the green one, all your financial statements would be off a little bit. Okay, so good luck and get moving on that project. It's a big project, and you don't have a huge amount of time to do it. We won't have any class time.